first four games, they've had a couple blowouts. I'm not gonna lie to you. Actually, not a couple, had one blowout. The Mount St. Mary's game ended up, it was kind of close, but it didn't necessarily hit like it needed to. But I must say, last night, Alabama State, that game delivered, and tonight, Xavier, Texas delivered as well. Xavier gets the win 86 to 80 in comeback fashion. They were down as many as 13 points in this game at certain points, and they battled back. Zach Freemantle was really good in this game, 15 points. Ryan Conwell, 11 points. Dalen Swain had 11 points. But the story of this one was kind of more so the unsung guys, I think, for Xavier. You have a fifth-year senior transfer from Furman and Marcus Foster who chips in 22 points and 8 rebounds. Now, kind of to put that in perspective, the last 5 games, the point production that you have gotten from Marcus Foster in major minutes is 5 points, 6 points, 0 points in 29 minutes against Butler, 3 points in 30 minutes against Creighton. I mean, he stepped up in the biggest moment. A guy with a lot of experience, has played a lot of college basketball. For him to pour in 22 points, and a lot of those being massive, massive buckets, it goes 4 or 5 from 3 point range, 8 rebounds to go on top of that. He was massive in this game. And then another guy, Dante Maddox Jr., he kind of kept Xavier in it in the first half when things weren't going really well. He poured in 10 points in 15 minutes. Over to Texas. I mean, Texas kind of had control of this basketball game. For most of it, they were moving the basketball. Trey Johnson was making shots. Tremont Marks showed some elite shot making in that first half. But credit to Xavier, I thought they just chipped away in this basketball game. This game took place about 45 minutes from Xavier's campus, so it was a very pro Xavier crowd. And I think they really fed off that, even as they chipped away at this lead, cut it to 8, cut it to 7. The crowd was really getting into it. Had some very questionable shots, I think, from Texas that were going in the first half, weren't going in the second half. And then Xavier was able to make a run. And now they advance to take on Illinois and they get to keep their tournament hopes alive. These were two teams that I think people had different views on whether they belong in the tournament or not. But I just went really long-winded there. Dion, let me throw it to you real quick for some thoughts on this game.
No, honestly, I mean, I thought you hit a lot of points. Fremantle to me was really, really special too. He had 2 points in the first half. I want to say 13 in the second for 15 total, but I want to say he also had like the last 6 or 8 points for Xavier. He kind of put the game away. College basketball, it's funny to me. A post up in college basketball feels like a bucket. If you do that in the NBA, I'm laughing. Like sick joke that you just pulled trying to trying to do a post up. But every time Fremantle got the ball down the stretch, it's like, okay, he's gonna shimmy, get to his back shoulder, it's gonna be a bucket. He had one, God, I don't remember what the score was, but it was a tie game. It might have been 78-78 to be honest. And he kept trying to get to his left shoulder. And I was like, why? You can spin back right. Never did it. Eventually faded and threw it over like Texas's best shot blocker, nothing but net. Subsequently, Trey Johnson went down the court. I want to say he got fouled, went 1 of 1, or 1 of 2 on the 1 and 1. So he kind of hit every big shot for me. They kind of controlled the pace down the stretch, I felt like. But honestly, man, I gotta be honest, Texas just looked tired. This, if you are an SEC fan, and I know a lot of these teams aren't Texas, and Texas isn't as good as a lot of the other teams in the SEC. What Texas did in the last 7 minutes of this game is what I'd be terrified of if I'm a fan of an SEC team. You just went through a gauntlet, and then on top of that, you had to play in the conference tournament in a much, for being honest, you're going to play tougher games in the SEC tournament than you most likely are in the first weekend of this tournament. He went through a gauntlet. They looked exhausted. Every game that SEC teams play is at 10. They never get a break. They look like a team that needed a break. They didn't get it. Xavier just hung around, hung around, hung around, saw the tired legs, said, let's go. If I'm an SEC team, I'd be a little worried about other teams being able to do that to us too.
Yeah, look, I think, I pointed out that the crowd really played a factor in the second half, I think, during that Xavier run. And I think that wore on Texas a little bit. I think that Xavier kind of just, that old mantra of like Big East tough ass basketball, like bite the floor type, grind it out, die on the center court. I feel like Xavier kind of encompassed that in this basketball game, and they were able to just kind of be efficient, keep on hitting, and as much as we want to say that, Texas wore down. They wore down on both ends. It wasn't just shot making. Xavier was shot 60% from 2-point range. They shot 48% from 3-point range, hit 12 threes in this basketball game, including, like I said, four coming from Marcus Foster, another three coming from Jerome Hunter. But it just seemed that Xavier was able to wear on them, and Texas could not string together many stops. And look, if you're Texas, you have a basketball game where you shoot 50% from 2-point range, you shoot 47% from three, you hit 18 free throws, you make 75% from three, you don't really lose the rebounding battle, you don't really lose the turnover battle either. That's got to be a really tough pill to swallow, right? Obviously there's very small margins in games like this, and I think you can point to maybe some questionable shot selection from guys like Trey Johnson, Tremont Mark, and other guys on Texas that led to buckets on the other end for Xavier, and it kind of seemed to like suck the life out of the arena a little bit when maybe there's a contested step back from Tremont Mark that bounces off the front rim. Dalen Swain gets a leak out dunk, and all of a sudden, like the crowd's into it. It's an and one. It seemed that Texas kind of was a little bit defeated and deflated down the stretch in that one.
Uh, so the only reason I don't think it'll be a tough pill to swallow, and the only reason I smiled when you said it is because Rodney Terry won't be around and Trey Johnson will be in the NBA. So they'll have a whole different pill that they'll be swallowing here in a little
So it's kind of like, all right, I'll see you, Tremont Mark's out of there. I'll see. Honestly, a lot of guys are throwing up the deuces in
bit.
that Texas locker room. They're probably kind of happy it's over.
What's that, Magic Johnson? I'm not going to be
I mean,
here.
I'm not gonna be there. I mean, look, you always want to say that teams want to when they get here. It's like you want to win it, right? Like you want to be there. I will say this. There was a little bit more toughness in the second half from Xavier, I think. Maybe not even physical, but also a little bit of mental toughness down the stretch in that second half where they were kind of able to stick with it, even being down as many points as they were, right? Because you think about how college basketball goes. If you're down on the road, usually you kind of fold it up, right? But I
Yeah.
think, like I mentioned, with this being a somewhat pro Xavier crowd, it seemed that they just kept on, punching away, chopping away at it, and eventually they got to that end stretch and they found themselves with a chance to make a play. I know I brought it up, the bad shot selection, but I got to bring this one up. Trey Johnson, early in the shot clock, about 24 seconds left. I think they're down one at this point. I want to say it's like 70, maybe 75 to 74, something like that. Xavier's up after hitting Hughley hits a three. Went 1 for 6 in the game, but he banged that three shot to my big dog on that one. Definitely a Husky hooper. But Trey Johnson takes one of his classic contested like step back threes, which Rodney Terry is not going to get mad at him. I don't think many coaches are going to get mad at him. Maybe not to the next level, but
Mm.
it comes off the front rim. Dalen Swain contests the step back. He leaks out after the step back. He gets an and one. Trey Johnson does like a little soft push in the back foul, and it's an and one. Crowds into it. They go to the under four timeout, and at that point, I feel like Xavier just did enough. And it honestly also might have been Xavier's night somewhat in this one, even in the comeback. I mean, to end the game, Zach Freemantle shoots a three that I don't even think hit the lines on the square. It was so much of a brick. Like it literally hit like the edge of the backboard from the top of the key.
Yeah.
Bounces right to a Xavier player for a layup. And that kind of iced the game and that puts it away. So Xavier gets to advance in this one. I do gotta ask you before we get out of here though, Dion. Texas and Texas's future. This seems intimate that this has to be the end for Roddy Terry, right?
Hey, do you think it's too early to bring Chris Beard back?
Probably a little bit too early to bring Chris Beard
I
back.
feel like a little too early to be CB back. Double entendre. But
That's crazy.
yeah, it was bad. Hand up, hand up accountability. Still not okay what either one did though. And they got to throw the hand up also. I want to go back to your point about like I just okay, hand up again. I realize what I did there. They need to hold themselves accountable was my point. I realize what I did there. They going back to your point about Texas not wanting it as much, down the stretch you could tell Trey Johnson did not care that much. Hands on his side on defense. He was standing up straight on defense in like you're down by two. Trey Johnson was a little bit moved on to the NBA in this game.
Yeah, if you don't got enough something to get in the stance in a game like that, that means you don't want to be there. And Last thing I'll say on this one, I was very impressed with Xavier, how they were able to battle the foul trouble in this one too. Like they're down by 13 and Ryan Conwell's in foul trouble and Zach Fremantle's in foul trouble. And those guys played large stretches of this game with 4 fouls. So, they're able to stay in the game, make plays. I think you give all the credit to Xavier in battling this one. And now they get a chance to go take on Illinois in the next game. That's going to be a really tough game. We will have the preview of that game up here on the channel. A lot of storylines with that one. We'll have previews and recaps of every March Madness game here on Sleepers Media YouTube channel. Be sure to tap in with us. It is March, and that means that March Madness is upon us. And if you are looking for a place to play, Underdog Fantasy has you covered. Sign up and deposit using code SLEEPERS, that's code SLEEPERS, to receive up to $1,000 in bonus credit plus a free pick. Head over to Underdog Fantasy today and use promo code SLEEPERS to take advantage of this amazing offer.